All right, hello everyone, and welcome to round 6 of the Davy Dak fights, and I'm here with none other than Hidden Island. I don't think he really needs much of an introduction. I mean, he's been on the channel several times. One of
What's
my
up,
favorite
guys?
creators, one of my best friends. So, Hidden, how you doing today, man?
Yo, Dak, thank you for having me on. First off, guys, hello. A lot of you guys out there in the chat, I see a bunch of people that know me already. Glad to be here. I've been meaning to get on this stream for a while. I do love what Dak's been doing with these. He's been having some really great discussions on here. I know that when I caught the Power Vision one, that was such a good stream. So I am honored to be here, bro. Thank you for bringing me on.
I'm happy to have you here, man. And it's, we talked about this right before the stream started, but it's crazy that this week we got that chapter with Shanks, and you also dropped that Shanks and Mihawk video. So this is we
Yeah.
planned this before all that happened, right? So
Yes.
so
True.
very serendipitous. But I do want to get right into the chapter because I think
Sure.
all of us are pretty hyped about that, and there's a lot to talk about where it's going to go from here and all that. So I just want to get your thoughts. Is this the end of Eustace Kid? Are the Kid pirates disbanded? Because are they just done? Are they not a pirate crew anymore, or is Kid coming back, or what do you think's happening?
To be real, reputation does develop and travel fast in the pirate world. I feel like, I talked about this in my last video with Shanks and Mihawk. Yeah, Shanks and Mihawk had their duel that did kind of make reverberations in the pirate world. So the way I see it is a defeat this embarrassing for Kid, you get absolutely obliterated like that news is going to spread. That's going to actually get around. So even if Kid, let's say, somehow survived this and wanted to get back on the ocean, of course people's opinion of him is not going to stop him from doing what he wants. I could definitely see him making a comeback, and I could see Oda not killing off his character, but the odds do not look great. The odds do not look great. He might be out for the count, and if he somehow does come back, I wouldn't be surprised if his pirate career was over, if he goes and starts making cannonballs for people. Or picks up a side job, with Bellamy on the flags.
I was just about to say, Bellamy vibes. All right, man,
Yeah.
I'll go help other pirate crews some way. I'm not meant to, be a pirate myself.
Yeah.
But
Change careers.
And I definitely feel that because I think on some level, Law has had so much narrative purpose, and he's given a lot of reason for Law to be important, because I think Law and Kid are somewhat of parallels in a way. Obviously, they're both attacking other Yonkos and stuff, but Kid doesn't have quite that narrative reasoning to stay in the story, right? We haven't learned much about his backstory. The only backstory we know is revealed in an SBS, which is kind of okay, that's kind of scary. Maybe Oda doesn't, care about him that much. He's not going to dedicate time. So I think those reasons are very legitimate. This could be the end of Kid, or you're saying, he could just go on to make cannonballs or do something, right? But I will say, I mentioned this on stream a bunch of times before, but the Giants should like Kid, right? They should have, even though he aimed a cannon or whatever, a railgun at their island, he beat Big Mom, right? And so there is a little bit of an issue there where it's well, do the Giants still want to save him or not? And that actually led me down an interesting path with Loki, right? So I've been thinking about this, and I don't know if you have any Loki thoughts, but I know this is someone that we're going to have to meet in Elbaf at some point, right? At least I presume, because we know he exists. But we haven't seen him yet, right? We didn't see him with Shanks on the shore, and I thought that was kind of weird. And so I guess I just want your thoughts. Do you think, just first off, can the Giants saving Kid, is that a possibility? And could that lead to something? And second off, do you think Loki could have a role in this at all? Because we don't know much about him, but because he also doesn't like Big Mom, right? So he might be Kid, I fucking love you, man. You took out Big Mom.
You're right. No, you're right. The Giants helping out Kid. All things considered, right? Shanks is not a evil guy, and the Giants, from what we've seen, are not they don't seem to be a country that is wrought with some sort of corruption, right? There's we've been to a lot of islands in One Piece. A lot of them have had corrupt governments when we've gotten there, Luffy has had to reinstall some sort of new government by the time he's left that island. But Elbaf, they're already under Shanks's protection right now. They seem to be doing pretty well. From what we've seen with Shanks, he's not a bad guy. He seems to care about people. He seems to have people's safety in mind. We've seen now with his Grand Fleet, it's a bunch of weaklings, and he's kind of like the older brother protective figure for all of them. So in my book, I can't imagine that anyone that follows Shanks would be doing something as horrible as just kind of like killing Kid and like letting him sink to the bottom of the ocean. Then again, I could see Oda throwing the curveball. So like maybe you're right, and maybe I'm jumping the gun here. It could be that they might actually rescue him, and they might, I don't know. It might just be a way to teach him a lesson, I guess. How does Loki tie into it, though? I mean, it's interesting that we haven't seen him yet, right?
Yep. That's what stood out to me, because everyone loves Shanks on the island, right? They're all like, Shanks, don't leave, we love you, right? Like, all of them are like near the shore because Shanks is there, but Loki isn't there, which Oda could just not want to show him yet or whatever, but to me, that could be a hint, like, maybe he doesn't like Shanks, Maybe there's some reason he's against Shanks, like he pissed him off for some reason. I'm not exactly sure, but I thought that kind of stood out to me. Like, of all the people, you would think Loki, like, who should be like the young gun, like the strongest dude in the country, or like future strongest dude, right? He's like the prince or whatever of Elbaf. You would expect him to be important, and he's not there with Shanks, right? Who everyone else is like Dorian Broggy are there, and it's like, it's like, so Loki's not with the main people, so that's kind of weird. Like, he's like,
it's true.
And another thing, and maybe I'm reaching too far, but I thought it was funny, and Odin in Norse mythology, not Oden but In.
Yeah, not the Kozuki Odin.
Exactly, but I was thinking maybe there is like a connection here where like Loki is like similar to the Odin lore or whatever, but Oda didn't want to use that name because like he had Odin, and maybe they're similar where Loki and Odin are both like against their, like, the country in a way, right? Like Odin didn't like hate the Kazukis, but he's like, we're cramped here, I want to leave. And he got kicked out of the family, right? He got disowned. And so I was thinking, could this be like a funny little parallel where Oda's gonna do like an Odin thing, but he didn't want it like Odin and En, but he's like, I can't use that name again. But it's like the same kind of thing. It could be just like an interesting parallel. But basically the point is like, maybe there's something with Elbaf that Loki doesn't like. Like, maybe they go to war too often or whatever it is, and he's like, we got to stop acting this way. And so it's a similar thing to Odin, where he's like, doesn't hate the giants, but he wants to change things. And what maybe Kid is his avenue to do that, right? He like works with him, like, we can change things,
So that actually gives me a great idea. And this is, now that you've actually mentioned that, I think this is where it all kind of comes together. And I just kind of made this connection. But we get to Elbaf, right? We see the title card for Elbaf, and it says, what does it say? It doesn't just say Elbaf, it says Warland Elbaf.
Yes, sir.
So this is a country of warriors. We've seen with Dorian Bragi, we've seen Saul called the Elbafian warriors brutes. So the giants of Elbaf are very war-loving. They're a very war-loving tribe.
Yep.
And in that regard, I could see there being a disagreement between the giants of Elbaf and maybe those of them that are on Shanks' side, possibly, right? Because Shanks might be a guy that's more about peace. He might not be so much about going to war. He's protecting a crew of weaklings, essentially. These are, his crew's a bunch of jokes. They're not warriors, but Shanks is giving them protection, essentially. And maybe that's the crux of it. Maybe it's that Shanks, despite being, I guess, accepted by some of the factions in Elbaf or some of the people in Elbaf, there could be this sort of internal strife that's happening right now between those that want war and those that are trying to avoid it. And maybe Shanks is trying to avoid it.
I love that. And so maybe it's a reverse where like Loki wants more war, or he's like, like, we're not, like, we're the strongest in the world and we're not going around conquering people. Like maybe we find out the reason I didn't want to marry Lola is because why does Big Mom get to have all the power? We're the strong force. We get, like, it could be a whole thing where he's like power hungry in a way. Like, maybe he's still a good guy, right? He doesn't have to be evil per se, but it could be like, a power thing. Like we're the giants. Why don't we go around and protect everyone like all the time? Like, I don't understand why we let this stuff happen. And so that could be like Shanks, like, you let bad stuff happen all the time and we're strong and we could stop it. Why don't we do that? That's a really good idea, because it is Warland. And also Dorian Broggy, like, they fought for 100 years. Like, that showed us that Elbaf warriors, that's like the whole thing, right? Like, they're all about fighting. And so that's all about fighting. And Loki could be like the epitome of that, like, to the nth degree. And that's why he could not like Shanks. That is because that's such a good twist. I think that's like probably, I think that's probably like, I don't know, I don't want to say
anything really like definitive because we really haven't seen much. But if there's any way I could see there being a conflict arising in Elbaf, it has to be around the central concept of like what drives this society in Elbaf.
Yep.
And it seems to be war, it seems to be conflict and fighting, and that's something that they have a lot of their society's built around that. And this is also, this is helping me. Recently I've been reading Vinland Saga, as you know, and I'm not going to give any spoilers for Vinland Saga. I'll just give you what I've learned about Viking society and Nordic society just from reading this manga, is that they value being a warrior more than anything else. And in the real Nords, only true warriors could go to Valhalla. You could only go essentially to paradise or heaven after you die if you were a true warrior, which means in order to become a true warrior, there would have had to have been some sort of battle for you to partake in. So, a society like that, especially when a lot of Vikings went out to sea in their ships and they pillaged, and they were essentially just pirates. They're pirates, but, from a long time ago. So, their society is driven by those things. And for a lot of them, it's like cultural, it's like tied into the culture too, where it's like you have to be a great warrior. You have to be some sort of, you have to be partaking in war to actually become a man or something. And maybe that's the core conflict of Elbaf is going to be that. I think that could be
wow.
That could be yeah,
like you mentioned Valhalla, or I think I'm pronouncing that right. I don't random comment.
I don't know, but...
I think there's a Dexter's Lab episode where they go into like a dream world and they go to Valhalla or something, and that's what I always think of whenever somebody says that word. I don't know if anybody ever watched Dexter's Lab, but one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, because you mentioned that, and that to me, I think that's something that has to matter in some way, right? Like, we don't know what the afterlife or whatever is really like, you know what I mean, in One Piece or whatever. And every culture has different renditions of how they're supposed to live and all that kind of stuff. But that is like extremely important point in Norse mythology, which very clearly is going to tie to Elbaf. And it could be like Loki's like, maybe like we're not gonna go to Valhalla, or no, we're not doing the things that we're supposed to do, that the god of Elbaf told us to do, and all that kind of stuff. It could be very mythologically based or historical, but in One Piece a lot of times we hear kind of crazy stuff and we're like, okay, obviously they're wrong, but then later on we're like, okay, maybe there is like a little bit of magic going on here, like a little bit of crazy, like we underestimated their legends or whatever. And like for instance, I think one good example is Skypiea. They're like, we have a sun god, and it's like, well, there's no gods, and then now Luffy is the sun god, right? And whatever. Yeah. So it could be a similar thing where they bring up Valhalla or these gods of Elbaf, all this kind of stuff, and it actually matters, right? It's actually important in some way, and maybe that's even part of like why their haki seems to be absurd, because Dorian Broggy, obviously, I mean, they've had Rio or whatever you want to call that, since pre-time skip, right? So.
That is core to like one of my theories about Elbaf, is that it's going to be the place that houses the third ancient weapon, if I had to guess right now.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, specifically because of the Norse gods, like the beliefs that they had in the in Norse mythology, the belief of the world tree, the belief of there are these great divine animals at each layer of the world tree. So under the world tree was, this giant serpent, and then on the tree there would be, the squirrel, that the burrowing squirrel or whatever it was that connects to your mole theory, and then on the top there's the eagle, right? So if they all had like these names for each of the ancient weapons that might tie into the actual like Norse mythology, I could see that really tying into Elbaf's identity as a whole, is that like a lot of these references to Norse mythology might be getting made. Dorian Broggy made the reference to Jormungandr back in Little Garden, where they talked about the serpent soaked in blood. There's a lot of ways for Norse mythology to tie into the names of the ancient weapons, the red line, and they've been holding on to this stuff for so long because giants have such long lifespans that they have the fewest number of generations between themselves and the Void Century. So a lot of their history and a lot of their culture is probably very closely maintained compared to other societies in the One Piece world. It's probably a lot closer to what it was like 800 years ago than everything else. That's probably why they're so traditional, and they're stuck in this kind of like warrior society, this war-based society. Here's another thought to build off of that. If they do have the closest connections to the Void Century in terms of like maybe their memory or their history of it, and they are a war-based society. What does that say about the Void Century, right?
Right, that's true.
Maybe that implies something about that, right? So
and you know, I think another thing is a lot of people believe the Atom Tree is on Elbaf, right? I don't know if you believe that, but it seems like it is.
I like that idea.
And also, you know, we have the Eve Tree, and that sticks through the red line all the way down to the bottom of the sea. So right there, it's kind of like you know, we talk about the Jormungandr thing, like with the people have said that the serpent snaked or soaked in blood could be the red line, right, or like an allegory for that. And it's like right there you have the Eve Tree literally going through the red line, then the Atom Tree in Elbaf, which talks about the Jormungandr. So right there's like a marriage, you know what I mean, between the two things right there.
Yeah.
Wow. And keep going.
And oh yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say that or what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, that the Atom Tree's like history, like the actual blurb that was like explained the Atom Tree, we talked about like how it was a tree that a society basically was built and crumbled around it time and time again because of like, didn't they mention like war? It was eventually destroyed by war, then rebuilt, and no matter how many times the society around the tree crumbled, the tree always stood. And you know, there was, wasn't that the story of the Atom Tree? That might be the story of Elbaf.
Right. And dude, I'm getting so many crazy, like, it's crazy that we're like 15 minutes into the stream and I'm already, right? I'm like, dude, I might have to make a video on some of this. But dude, like you brought up, you know, like the other ancient weapon, Uranus, being on top of the tree, which, you know, just to be clear, part of my thought process is that the egg that Roger had Uranus inside it, but it probably hatched since then, so it's got to be somewhere. So, I'm totally game with that. You know, it makes sense that it would be hidden somewhere where only it could go or something like that, right? So the top of the tree makes sense. And dude, what did we find at the bottom of the Eve Tree? Poseidon.
That's true.
And so what are we going to find at the top of the Atom Tree? Uranus, god of the sea, all the way at the bottom.
That even helps it more, right? Because the serpent that was underground, that lines up with Poseidon, because Poseidon has the ability to control the Sea Kings under the sea.
Oh man.
So if there's the serpent under the sea that's being controlled, that's Poseidon, and maybe they had a different name for it in Elbaf. Maybe they have their own names for each of them. Then maybe that's the inversion. Now we have at the top of the Atom Tree. That's brilliant. I love that.
That is like, I've heard a lot of thoughts like, oh, Uranus is gonna be at the top of the tree for whatever reasons, but I gotta be honest, like Poseidon's at the bottom of the Eve Tree, that is like the best evidence I've heard for that, because it's like, okay, we found an ancient weapon on the opposite side, so it makes sense that that reversal would be there. So
that would fit right into I think that would fit right into the beginning of a video, like just like, you know, like when you give the intro to like a theory idea, you're like, you just like, oh, this is like, I believe that Uranus is at the top of the Atom Tree. Why? Because just like, you know, and then you just like explain that. Really, that's like a good hook. I think I would be hooked on it. Yeah,
100%. That's one of those like, okay, he knows something.
He's cooking with something here. Exactly. Yeah. You hear that? You're like, okay, got it.
I got a couple super chats I want to get to, but real quick, I did see an interesting chat from Mega Migs before all that over on Twitch. Shout out to you, Mega Migs. He said, seeing Kid and Luffy carry those blocks in Udon had me feeling like Kid would find Mjolnir, I suck at pronouncing that, but I think you know what I mean, at Elbaf and use it as a weapon vehicle. And I've always thought Usopp, you know what I mean, for this kind of stuff, because obviously uses a hammer and all that. But that does make me think, you know, if there is a Mjolnir whatever type weapon and it's made of metal, what if Kid is the guy who can pull it out because he has magnetism? And so that, you know, he cheats the system, but he earns their respect in that way. I know that's like reaching a little bit, but I was like, man, you know, like it would make, it's probably going to be a metal hammer of some, I would assume, you know, or it could just be stone. But
that would have been, I mean, that definitely could still happen. Like if Kid made a comeback, man, and did some Mjolnir thing, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone would hype that. It's just that like, I also feel like people are a little bit tired of getting hyped up on Kid and then getting let down. I think this is like the third time now that we've had this sort of like build up to like, okay, Kid's gonna do some crazy thing, and then he either gets overshadowed by someone else or he just kind of falls short.
Yeah, exactly.
I would caution further expectations.
Yeah, it's definitely like one of those, like, it's like in the bag of like the 10 different ideas where people are like, kid's gonna be great because of this, and it's like a realistic idea, but none of them ever pan out, you know. Like I brought up the magnetism, like he's a human log pose, that's never mattered, that's never come up, you know. It's like there's a lot of things.
There was a good tweet I saw, and I didn't this is actually something I feel like I should have been able to pick up on, but I managed to miss it. A long time ago, I made this video about like the real life pirate inspirations for everyone. I did a whole section on kids' real life inspirations. Somehow missed this. Someone pointed out online that Kid was known as the real Kid. It was William Kidd.
William Kidd
was known as the unluckiest pirate in history, or something like that. He's like the unluckiest pirate in history, the real one.
Damn.
So if this is what's going on with Kid in the story right now, if like, yeah, maybe he's just really fucking unlucky. Like maybe that's it. That's
which
he's Luffy without fate, without plot armor.
I would almost but I would almost say he might even be Luffy's probably better, but almost like Buggy too, where Buggy also fails, but he still wins, right? Like he never beats anybody big, you know what I'm saying? Like Kid's stronger than Buggy is, but he just doesn't get the same breaks, right? And Luffy the same way, but at least Luffy is strong to like kind of earn it. Obviously there's tons of plot armor, but it's like he's the worst of both worlds, basically. You know what I mean?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. So I do, like you said, caution anyone to get too hyped up. But I will say, if he did do the Mjolnir thing or whatever, it would be pretty cool. That would be.
I would love that. I would love that.
It would be a good comeback. Good comeback story. So Saran Wrap used 100 bits and used Future Sight at the same time because he said, plus giants live a long time. What's to say 1-2 generations back, some should know about the Void Century. Kind of like you were saying, you know what I mean? Like the giants are only a few generations removed from the Void Century. So a lot of their traditions and stuff and the information they're aware of is probably pretty accurate because like their grandpa lived there. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely an excellent point. And then Young Usopp super chatted $5 and said, what do you think of the glare Kid gave Shanks after being knocked out? Can't see Kid being done after that panel. Very similar to Luffy to Kaido. Yeah, it's tough because like I don't know if Shanks or if Kid woke up from this and was like, I'm going after red hair, I'm gonna beat that guy. I mean, he's just dumb. Like at that point, you know, like you're just come on. And so I can see him holding a grudge, but I can also see him being like, all right, this guy is just like way too strong, and also like I came and attacked his island, like he wasn't even gonna hurt me till I did that, you know. And so it could be like a whole thought process where like I need to change my game, you know, like in a lot of ways. But at the same time, he doesn't even have a ship now, so he can't even go after him if he wanted. So
his ship's gone, his crew's scattered. He's probably completely incapacitated, if not dead. We have no clue where Killer's at. It's a rough situation. For Kid.
I will say, I didn't mention this earlier, but I was on Kev's stream, Kev Dog, yesterday, and we were talking about. So there is a crew member on Kid's crew named Dive, and the Kid pirates have like pretty apt names, right? Like we have Killer, who has a Jason mask and scythes and stuff, like he's straight out of a horror movie type thing. We got Heat, who breathes fire. You know what I mean? And then we have Dive. And so I was like, bro, Dive is 100% gonna just go in the water and save everybody. Like 100%. And also
the name does imply that, right? Yeah.
And also we've only seen them like once, and they attack with biting, and they wear high heels, which reminded me of Dellinger, who was a half fishman, also like a fighting fishman, and because he wore heels and had like sharp teeth and all that kind of stuff. And so maybe this is like Dellinger's sister or something, and that's not that important, but it's just like probably a fishman or half fishman. And Dive, I mean, kids,
man, look, if there's time to speculate about any Kid pirates saving anyone, it's now. It's now.
And also Law's crew, right? Sachi and Penguin were good in the water. Like we thought they were useless, but they were good in the water, which is like, okay, maybe kids did the same thing. Like I need people in the water because I have a devil fruit, right? So wait, what's Par saying? Dive V Jones. Hey, bro. Hey, let's not hype up Dive that much. All right, Dive. If Dive saves
Rockstar.
Yeah, exactly. like if Dive saves the kid pirates, that's more than any other kid pirate has done outside of Killer. Mr. Bushido also super chatted €5 and said, I think Kid will get trained. My top 4 candidates are Jarl the Giant, who was friends with the man Big Mom killed, Loki or Shiki, or Scopper. Well, the one I'll definitely go with is Loki. I can definitely see Loki being like, Kid, like, you think hockey is the sport we play on ice. Like, you got to use hockey, like, the weaponized form of it, like the HAKI version, because Kid does not know how to use it. So that would be my, kind of thought process is like, Loki, if they do team up, if there's any reason, that's going to be part of what Kid wants is like, all right, I just saw Dorian Broggy launch a attack that ripped my ship in half all the way from the shore. Like, how do you do that? I need to know how to do that. That I can see something like that, because Loki would be the man to teach him. But at the same time, like, that's that's like the best case scenario for Kid. I'm not sure if that'll happen, but
I think there's a bunch of cool scenarios where Kid could learn something from the Giants. The biggest problem I have with Kid is that he doesn't really know any of the advanced techniques that he should to be able to keep up with Luffy. Like, even though he's supposed to be billed as this rival for Luffy, he doesn't have the tool set necessary to do so. For example, like Rio, he doesn't have Rio. He doesn't have Future Sight. He doesn't have Advanced Conquerors.
Have we even seen him cover his metal and armament?
I don't think so. No. So we've seen him do next to nothing. He's pretty much relied mostly on his Devil Fruit ability for most of the story. And sure, that might have gotten him far, but you can only go so far. Mm-hmm. And I think he's hit a massive wall. So the only alternative would be somehow he has to meet his Rayleigh, because like,
yes,
I know people are saying this is like, oh, this is Luffy versus Kaido all over again, except it's with Kid, and Kid's gonna make a comeback. And it's like, bro, we're in the final saga. Kid already had his Luffy versus Kaido moment. He had it with Big Mom. He had it with Shanks originally, right? Because this is not the first time he tried to fight Shanks. He lost his arm somehow.
Yep.
So
and he lost to Kaido also.
And so he lost to Shanks. He lost to Big Mom. He lost to Kaido, and now he lost to Shanks again. How many more Luffy versus Kaido round ones are we gonna have before we say that Kid's just maybe not cut for the fucking competition here?
Yep.
That's what it is.
I agree with you entirely. I think it's like throughout his journey, he's probably gotten through with just his fruit and Killer probably, like, whatever. But it's a drastic change for him to go get haki on this level, right? Like that. It's possible, and it needs to happen if he's going to be relevant. But it's like, why hasn't that happened yet? Like, even when he was fighting against Kaido on the rooftop, he was like, wait, haki can hurt Kaido? Like, bro, yes. How dumb are you? Like, yes.
Like, bro, like, what do you think? Who do you think you're fighting right now?
Yeah. Have you even tried it? Have you tried using haki against him?
I saw people on Twitter, like, people were like roasting Kid, and they were like, man, I can't blame Apu for betraying him, bro. Like, why? Like, if the guy that's heading your alliance is saying shit like, oh, we could hurt Kaido with haki, then you gotta bounce. I'm sorry, you gotta bounce. You gotta be out of there immediately. That's a bad alliance.
Exactly.
You just like Kid is like a top tier prospect that turns out to be an absolute scrub. I don't know what the comparison. Maybe I'm trying to think of like a good basketball like someone who's like first round draft pick, and then they just completely peter out like in the first season.
Anthony Bennett. If you know Anthony Bennett, my Cleveland Cavaliers with the worst pick ever in NBA history, but it's the same thing. Like
that's
it's
what Kid is.
Yep, he comes out like he has the top bounty early. It's like, oh, this guy's gonna be great. I'm pumped to see it, and just terrible, right? Like every time we see him lose out of the league. You know what I'm saying? So man. Yeah,
it's not just about being destructive. Kid missed the whole point.
Yep, because like going with the basketball reference, it's like like people can get better at things. Like, hey, coach, like I want to get better at shooting, and then you learn how to shoot. But kids like, wait, you can get 3 points for shooting a 3-pointer? That's like basically the equivalent.
He doesn't know the rule. Like he doesn't know the rules, bro. Like he's like straight up getting fouled. Like he's like like now we're gonna just turn this into a basketball thing, but like this is the reality. Like he's like doing backcourt violations.
Yeah.
He's like actually he doesn't know what's going on.
I have to bounce the ball. What, like, it's like, dude, like these are
Bro.
these are the most basic rule. Like, bro, like, have you just been like 7 foot tall your whole life, so you've been dominating like without dribbling or anything, and you just learned that there's actually rules? Like, is that?
Yeah, like there's rules to the game, bro. Like you got to learn hockey. Like you got to be able to do these things, man.
He just got on varsity, and there's someone who's just as tall as him, and he's like, oh, whoa, wait, okay, like he can do all this. Like, wait, I didn't know people did that. Like, you know,
and you know what's funny? All the pirates that should be at this high of a level all can do, as far as we've seen, to some degree, they can do future sight.
Yep.
So if Kid truly were at the level worthy of 3 billion, which by the way is absolutely absurd. Now that we've seen this, 3 billion is the most fraudulent bounty I've ever seen.
Bounties can't be used for power scaling
They're
anymore.
no longer appropriate for power
We're
scaling.
done.
We're done. You cannot ever use a bounty as a justification again for like actual real power scaling, because my man Kid should not have 3 billion berries. If this dude can't do any of that stuff, if he can't even use future sight enough to see what was going to happen to him in advance, like he should have been able to see that coming, right?
Yep.
Like Katakuri has a 1 billion, just above 1 billion berry bounty.
Yep.
And this dude has great future sight. He's known for his future sight at 1 billion berries. Kid has 3.
Yep.
It has 3. And this man was not prepared for anything that happened to him. It was like a 2-3 move checkmate. Like, what do you?
Yeah.
What was your plan? What was your plan? Like that, you know?
Exactly. And it's just like, I don't know. Like he's so overconfident too, and that's what really like just upsets me, because it's one thing if you're like, for instance, Blackbeard, like he knows he can't beat people sometimes, so he's like, we got to get out of here, like we're not, like this is dumb, like I'm aware of my power level, I know what's going on, like I'll get there eventually, but not right now, right? He's done that multiple times, like Akainu and what, there's other examples, but Kid is like, nah, and I respect it, I get it, man, like that's, you know, props to you, you know, that's he's got balls, no doubt, but bro, like like what he has in balls, he lacks in brain. You know what I'm saying? So, absolutely. Yeah, man.
Yes. That's the thing. And I think his real, like, if he is going to have a comeback of any sort, it's going to have to involve a shift in his mentality. Like, he can't be the same Kid if he comes back. If he comes back from this and he's the same character with the same just like brash, like unthinking attitude of just like, I'm just gonna be as destructive as possible, here's a big cannon and hopefully this cannon blows up your ship or whatever, like that's not enough. He's got to come with a new mentality. He's got to have like that, you know, like Bellamy had that moment, right? Like Bellamy had that life-changing instance where he learned the error of his ways, and he was able to become not only stronger but a better person, a better pirate in general, by actually learning from that experience with Luffy. Because think about it this way, actually. Now that we think about this, right? Now that I bring up Bellamy, was it really Luffy versus Kaido round 1 that did it first? Or was it Bellamy versus Luffy back in Jaya that showed us that exact scene first?
True.
We saw it back in Jaya.
That's
Bellamy
so true.
was the first one to get Yonko'd in One Piece. He was the first one. He picked a fight with Luffy. He got one-shotted. Except what Bellamy did was learn from it. He grew from it. And then he came back and he was way stronger down the road, and he was a better pirate, and he accomplished more, and he saw the world, and he wasn't this closed-minded dude that we saw back in Jaya. Kid needs that moment.
Yes, he
Kid
does.
needs to have that exact shift in character.
And also, you know, like Bellamy even had like a little bit of like it was like a stepwise thing, like yes, that moment happened and he changed, but then he like went with Doflamingo, and he still like, he was like halfway to the message, right? Like he got halfway there, and then after he lost again and Doflamingo lost and everything, he's like, all right, now I understand, like, you know, how, like, what, like how I should view the world, maybe not perfectly, but he, you know, better grasp of it. And Kid, but the thing is Kids had that happen, like you said, like Kaido, Shanks twice, Big Mom. Well, I guess we don't really know Big. He got kicked out. Like he got what he wanted, but he didn't like beat anybody or whatever. Right? That's whatever it is. He hasn't been that successful, right? He hasn't beat anybody top tier, and he hasn't changed yet. So, you know, this loss was so crazy, right? Like so overwhelming that I pray for him that this is it. You know,
yeah, that's why he just needs to learn. Like that's the thing. If he's not, if this is not Oda's way of getting him out of the story, because that could be what it is. It could just be him narrowing down how many people are left in this bracket. You know.
Yeah. Or
if it's not, or
I was gonna say, or kind of like going off the Bellamy thing, how Bellamy got halfway there, then joined up with Doflamingo. What if we just see a scenario where Kid ends up joining Shanks, or like, you know, I don't want to say joining like happily, like, oh, you're great, but it's kind of like a, you know, like he doesn't feel like he has another choice type deal, or he needs to learn from him type, you know, whatever it is, right? And
that's an insult to throw him in the Grand Fleet alongside like Garotini.
Yes.
And like Fugar.
Yep, he would be the leader of those guys. That would
be brutal.
But it would keep him relevant. It'd be like hilarious. Oh, man. I mean, and I know this is like a big stretch, but you know, they are called the red-haired pirates, and Shanks is probably gonna, I mean, I shouldn't say probably, but I and some people think Shanks will die by the end of the story, right, at some point. And it would be kind of crazy if he brought Kid under his wing at some point. It was like, well, you have red hair, so like you're gonna take over. You know, like I need someone to protect these territories. But like obviously Kid's an asshole, so that doesn't make sense right now. But that is like, if he's gonna join Shanks, it could be that goal where it's like, you know, like I don't know. It's like, you know, definitely.
That's so slanderous though. Like if he just like gets thrown in the group with all the other scrubs, I feel so bad. That would be like overkill. I feel like he's just getting like his legacy. His legacy would be getting eviscerated if that had to happen to him. I mean, look, it's possible. I would be fine if he was actually like if he ended up joining under Shanks or something, admitting to him. But like, man. It's like extra insult to injury now, because we know that Shanks's like fleet is made up of scrubs. So like
exactly,
yeah.
Well, maybe he needs he's like, hey, you know, you're stronger than all these guys. You're even stronger than Rockstar. But like, I can't, you know, like I can't have you as an officer, but you can be the next highest. And he's like, all right, I'll learn under your tutelage. I don't know. Like Kid's not that type of guy, but like we're saying, like he needs to have a moment where he comes to earth a little bit and is like, okay, like I need to get better. So.
Would it be crazy if I requested that we could try and power scale Rockstar for a second?
Oh, that's okay. You got to start, because I don't know.
What was his bounty? I'm trying to find what his bounty was when we first saw him.
I'm gonna
look at that One Piece bounty. Rockstar.
94 million.
94 million. So this guy pre-time skip had close to 100 million on bounty. So that is like, we're talking Crocodile had his bounty frozen at like 80 million before he became a warlord. This guy had 100. Now we know in retrospect 100 million is kind of scrubbish, but hey, Luffy Ajaya also had that like 100 million, so that's like not that bad. Now, granted, Luffy had 2 years to train. Everyone had 2 years to train and improve. Rob Lucci, I was saying for a long time, Rob Lucci was going to be stronger the next time we saw him, because everyone had 2 years. It wasn't just the Straw Hats. Everyone did. So Rockstar also had those 2 years, and he's not only so like, now hear me out. When we first meet Rockstar, he's introduced to us as a newbie. He just joined the crew.
Right.
Okay. So they just took him in as an apprentice at 100 million berries. He's their apprentice.
Okay.
2 years, you get fully trained by the red-haired pirates nonstop for that 2 years. You have Shanks and Beckman and all these guys training you. I think deadass right now, I think Rockstar might even be stronger than Kid.
Really? I don't know. I'll say this. I don't rule it out at all. And part of it, unironically, is because
so mad.
Kid is a rock star, right? Like literally, like that's his thing, right? He's like punk rock, like that's his whole, like punk everything. That's his whole style, is like he's supposed to be like a rock star, right? This is the reason that that I have a joke that the only reason Kid got away with what he wanted from Whole Cake is because Smoothie has the hots for him, because he's like a rock star. So she's like, okay, like I'll let you get out of here, or whatever, you know, whatever it is. So I want that to matter, and it would be hilarious if the guy named Rockstar was like, bro, you're not even as strong as me, and you have 3 billion. Like that. like for that reason I like it. Like obviously it's really hard to like scale him. Like the reasons you gave are the most legitimate reasons we have, you know what I'm saying? But that reason alone, that he's named Rockstar, he has red hair and all that, and Kid is like a punk rock guy, but he keeps failing. It's like Rockstar's like, bro, you got to do what I did. Just join Shanks. You know,
he's just like, I'm just you, but better. No, but think about like I know people are gonna roast me for this, but think about this. You're getting trained by Shanks. This dude's probably one of the best haki users in the entire story. Kid, we've seen Kid not unable to do beyond the most basic levels of haki. Come on. Like if you learned haki from Shanks, I'd imagine you have better use of your haki than Kid. Kid like legit did not. He can't even do Ryo, bro. Like Kinemon could do Ryo. Kid can't even do Ryo.
If you assume that Shanks did train him, which I think is very fair, because I think Shanks wouldn't want a weakling on his crew. You know, like you need to be able to protect people, right? Exactly.
Rockstar's not in the Grand Fleet. He's on the main ship.
Yeah, he's in between because he's not one of the main officers, but he's like the one guy that we know rides on the main ship who isn't an officer. So it's like a weird in between. So he's like, yeah, whatever. But he's a newbie. Yeah. But I like that because it's like he's in training, right? That's the point. He's an apprentice. Like that's the point, is to get stronger and all that, right? So I like that, and it would be really funny if Rockstar and like, what if Shanks is like, Rockstar, I need you to stay here and make sure Kid doesn't do anything, and it's like because you're strong enough to handle him. You know what I mean? Like you stay here and make sure he doesn't come on the island and start rampaging. You can take care of him.
Yeah, I'm semi trolling with this take, but at the same time, it's like, let's be real though. Let's be real. I feel like most characters who can do, I feel like you just have an inherent advantage over Kid if you can even just so much as like do any sort of advanced haki, because if he doesn't know how to, if he doesn't know how to do that stuff, it's hard for me to have faith in him anymore, especially after this showing. It's like you would expect him to at least put up a fight.
Yes, but exactly, like, and all the stuff about haki, that's the main point, because like if Kid doesn't have advanced, you know, haki of any kind, and Rockstar even just has Ryo or just has Future Sight or something, I probably gotta take Rockstar, to be honest. Like it's just I mean, Ryo, haki, like Kaido said, haki rules the seas, man. Like if somebody can do Future Sight, I'm probably like, I mean, like we saw with Katakuri, you know, like Luffy was able to like learn it during the fight and catch up and win, or sort of win at least. So like maybe that's how Kid gets better, is like Rockstar is barely better than him. You know what I'm saying? So it's like but I like that idea. It's just like Rockstar's like, dude, like Rockstar could be the perfect example of like, man, like how do you not have haki yet? Like you know, like
be like the weakest person on the crew and be the example of the baseline. Like you need to be able to do at least what Rockstar can do if you wanna mess around with the red hair pirates.
I like that a lot, because then it also, like we were talking earlier, it leads into the idea where maybe Kid joins Shanks or aligns with him, whatever, and he's like the head of these lesser groups, which I know is like kind of memeing, but like I said, like, you know, Shanks might die eventually, and like there's a ton of territories that are protected by the red hair pirates, and so for me it would just kind of make sense for maybe that to be the play here. Like Kid, you know, like not that Kid is going to become a good person and be super altruistic and go protect everyone, but they could just be that connection where like that's why he joins and why Shanks lets him, is like that thought of like, you know, maybe this guy can be the one who protects these people for me or something, because he's learning. I don't know, but that's like, so we're hyping up Kid now at this point. I mean, we went from Rockstar, we're leveraging Rockstar being stronger into helping Kid when it should just be, it should be slanderous, you know, like we're hoping.
Yeah, I didn't mean to derail it into like Rockstar, like Kid slander.
Oh no,
I just thought it was an interesting thing. I was just thinking about it, you know, because like ever since the conversations come up of like what he's actually capable of versus what he's not, it's like, oh, now I have to look at other characters. Like, I feel like we have reasonable assumptions to make about certain members of the red hair crew. If the world government's saying that all their bounties are